Today we have with us Georgia Music Partners, and not only are they a valued member of our entertainment commission, but several of their founding members also helped to create the Georgia Music Tax Credit. They have graciously coordinated a panel titled Navigating the Path to Success for the Independent Artist. You will get tips on distribution options, social media, marketing, live touring, and they will go over your legal checklist. So, without further ado, we're going to kick it off with Mr. Kendall Minter as our moderator. Welcome, Kendall.
Thank you very much, Shelby. And hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And especially thank you to my partners at Georgia Music Partners, Mala Sharma, Tammy Hurt, who work 8 days a week, usually 30 hours a day. And most of that's without pay for the lobbying activities that they do on behalf of the music community under the Gold Dome in the state of Georgia. So your efforts are always appreciated. And of course, thank you to Shelby and her team, to Tara Washington and Laura Ramos, Leslie Mackey, not to forget Bronwyn, and all that you do to make not only this expo a success, but also to be able to represent DeKalb County in the larger international and nationwide entertainment space, bringing business into our county. So today we're going to talk about navigating the path to success for the independent artist. By way of brief background, I am an entertainment attorney, having been in that kind of seat and position and representing clients around the world for quite a few decades now. I have a lot of unpaid labors of love, which are nonprofit boards of directors that I have the pleasure of serving on, including Georgia Music Partners, and then ancillary to that, the DeKalb Entertainment Commission, as well as Sound Exchange, what many of you hopefully are members of and get checks from quarterly or monthly for the streaming of your music and non-interactive streaming services. I'm also a professor adjunct at the School of Music and the Law School at Georgia State University, where I teach copyright and music publishing. Chairman Emeritus for the Rhythm and Blues Foundation, General Counsel for the Living Legends Foundation, and a founding member of the Black Entertainment and Sports Lawyers Association, known as BESLA. But enough about me. Let's talk about our esteemed panelists for this afternoon. Both Juliett Rowe and Mike Burton are not only super successful in what they do, but if you listen to the music that was the intro before Shelby began her remarks and presentation, Juliett has her fingerprints all over that. So maybe she'll share some of that process with us, that being one of the artists that she's responsible for breaking into the area of success. Juliett has basically spent her career working with independent and DIY artists and musicians. She's a maven at marketing and promotion and brand and artist development. She has a history of having brought to success an Atlanta independent label called Blood Drunk Records that really launched successful careers for a number of artists. She's been involved in creating the Atlanta Record Label Fest, which brought together independent labels around the city of Atlanta and help them propel their music into the digital space, which obviously, you know, these days is pretty much the only space that people occupy, even though there's still a little bit of space for vinyl and CDs, but you have to really, really look around to find those. She's very heavily experienced in the field of artist management. She consults for independent, not only music industry businesses, as well as DIY and independent artists. She's worked with Madison Records, which is a label that's distributed by The Orchard, which, as many of you in the business know, is an independent label distribution arm of Sony Music Entertainment. In her spare time, if she has any, she really serves as a talent buyer and director of marketing for the iconic Atlanta music venue, Smith's Old Bar. And if you haven't been by there, you need to get over there soon. Just ask for Juliett at the door, and she will accommodate your request as long as you're paying for it. Next to Juliett, by no means secondary, is Mike Burton. I'm kind of envious because Mike right now is hanging out in Sin City in Las Vegas with one of our Atlanta iconic superstars and hometown heroes, Raymond Usher. So they are on residency, as many of you know, with Usher's show in Vegas. And that's just an adjunct of the many, many artists that Mike has worked with. If I were to give you the entire list, we'd probably be here for like the next half an hour, but I'll just give you a little snippet. Mike has toured, and just by way of background, he is a musician. He's got both a master's and a bachelor degree in jazz studies, which he got from Indiana University Jacobs School of Music. So he's got the paper, and he's also got the experience of touring not only with Usher that I just mentioned, Patti LaBelle, Jill Scott, Mary J. Blige, Anita Baker, New Edition, PJ Morton, names that you've never heard of, but listen to every day. He's also done a lot of production and a lot of performing with a whole host of other artists. One of my former clients, Kirk Franklin, with J-Lo, with Tasha Cobbs Leonard, Ciara, and Anthony Hamilton, and BB and CeCe Winans, and Brian Courtney Wilson, his mom, and obviously it's in the DNA and in the genes, was a member of the iconic group, the Mississippi Mass Choir. And if you haven't heard of them, take your head out of the hole and listen to them and check them out. But that's Mike's DNA. He's got television credits. He's been on tons of shows, and he's performed all over the world. He's written and also produced with Trombone Shorty, Candy State, Yo-Yo, Alex Burton, and the list just goes on. So without further ado, I'd like to open up the mic. Being a chauvinist gentleman, I'd like to open up the mic first to Juliett, just to share a little bit, Juliett, if you would, with our audience today, a little snapshot of cliff notes of your career and the kinds of things that you're doing now that brought you to the position where we can listen to your artists as we opened up today's webinar.
Thank you so much. That was a great introduction. Very happy to be here today, so appreciate the opportunity. I was always a person, in high school, I was hanging out with bands at the warehouses, which I don't really recommend unless you have adult supervision, but if my parents knew that's where I was, I would probably be in trouble. But I was always hanging out with the bands at the warehouses in high school, but I've never been a musician. I don't have that talent. I'll be the first to tell you, but I've always been the person with the ideas, you guys should think about this or that, or, all these little things that musicians and artists, sometimes they're musicians and artists, they're not thinking business or strategy or marketing. So I've always just kind of, that has come naturally to me. So that's just where I've positioned myself over the years. And a lot of it is really just kind of being present, and it's any artist that's starting, no matter what the genre is, they all need someone to help them, and it could be your best friend who's doing bedroom pop or putting videos out on YouTube. They need someone to help them do all those things. And it's, more prevalent today that the digital world, it's a lot to handle, releases and things like that. So I've been fortunate that I've been able to teach myself skills and learn these things as I go and take courses and just stay on top of things to help the artists that I believe in. So I appreciate playing the Pinks at the beginning. That's the new single, came out today, Break Your Heart. We're very excited about that. All of my times, you always have these grand ideas for marketing, but really it comes down to who is the artist and what kind of artist are they. And telling the artist story is 100% of the time the right thing to do. And that will always get you, where you want to go, because at the end of the day, it's the emotions that they put out and the authenticity of their lyrics and their music. And that's what it's about. So.
Hey, Mike, you are truly a working musician. Mm-hmm. And the beautiful thing about that is not only are you working, you're getting paid. Mm-hmm. So Amen. If you can just give us a little snapshot of the path from studying jazz in school to watching your mom on stage to yourself being on stage.
Well, yeah. Once again, thanks for that intro, man. That was amazing. I was born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi. A lot of gospel and blues in my hometown. Like my mom was in the mass choir. And as a kid, 10, 11 years old, I was going to rehearsals with her, riding the bus to different shows around the country, and just seeing it as a kid just was very inspiring, man. And when I got to middle school, I picked up a saxophone and just fell in love with it. My parents insisted that I go to a performing arts high school. in my hometown. And that's why I first heard like Charlie Parker and Dexter Gordon and people like that. And I just was like, man, it's amazing, you know what the saxophone can sound like. So from there, my parents sent me up to Berklee College of Music for a summer. Like when I was 16, I got to see kids from all over the world, just really kicking my butt. They were just amazing kids, man. And that just showed me that I should maybe spread my wings and leave my home state and try to go somewhere and really, delve into this music thing, man. I was, very ambitious as a kid, though. When I was in high school, the great Victor Goins, he's a tenor saxophonist in Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra. He came to my high school, and he did a workshop, a clinic, and he was just telling us about his travels and seeing the world. He was maybe in his early 30s at the time, and he was just his stories were so intriguing to me, man. And just to, me being a kid from Mississippi, not being a whole lot of places, it was like, man, I could see the world with this saxophone, and so it just really inspired me, man. So went to college, finished school, moved to Atlanta, hit the jam sessions, and just started networking back in those days before social media was a big thing, man. So that was really like I was going 4 or 5 nights a week to all the sessions, just playing and meeting people, man. And one thing leads to another. It's not that fast or that simple, but that's kind of my start. As to how I got going.
Fabulous. And look where you are right now. So, we'll all wait for those tickets to the Usher show before you all get out of residency without putting any pressure on you.
I got you, man. I got you. All good.
No, at $250 a pop. So, Juliett, you've worked with Sony Orchard. Let's share with our audience the opportunities and the options that are available in today's independent market for distribution. For example, everybody has access to being able to lay tracks, whether it's at home, whether it's Pro Tools, whether it's in the studio, whatever you do. But what happens after those tracks are finished? How do they become, lifted up onto the multiple streaming platforms that we all hear? What's the path to distribution?
It really depends on your level as an artist. There are a lot of different options for you, but if you're a beginning artist, and there's no right or wrong, so I don't want anybody to think that one is better than the other. But if you're a very beginning artist and maybe you don't have a lot of revenue or you don't have a big audience yet, you would do something what they call a digital aggregator, which would be something like DistroKid or TuneCore or CD Baby. And they all have their pros and cons. For me, it's not about, obviously the money matters and percentages that you get, but it's also about the services that they offer. How easy is it? Do they have customer support? Things like that. If you're coming up and you're elevated a little bit and maybe you're in the millions of streams area and you have some revenue coming in for streaming, then you can look at getting some type of distribution deal. And that could be with, a label services company or like United Masters or something like Vidya or something like that. That's kind of the mid-level option for even independent artists. And like I said, this will be the point to where you actually have a solid revenue. Could be small, but it could be consistent. You're in the millions of streams. You're starting to get some action, elsewhere, press or things like that. And then after that would be, your bigger distribution deal, which the Orchard is one, or there are other companies where you would actually sign a deal. There's an advance happening. There's a lot more money at the table, things like that. So, and even Orchard has different tiers and levels of the artists that they work with. STEM is another company that has deals like that. So I would suggest, right now for me, my artist, we just hooked up with Earache Distribution, which is through Earache Records. That's who the Pink's distributed through today. Earache Records is a rock and roll label. They have many rock bands, but they launched a new label services company. So we were one of the first to get in. And the big thing for me is having somebody on the other end of the line. I can send emails about questions or things like that, and somebody responds. If there's an issue with an incorrect title or something's in the wrong store, there's someone else that can help me get that figured out. And to me, that's the key these days is, do you have an account rep? Do you have somebody that can get the marketing plan, maybe give you some advice, maybe help you and just help you and guide you as you release your music on these services. So.
Great. So Juliett, a lot of talented artists, not to take anything away from them, come out of the studio and think they've got the greatest single, the greatest tracks, it's like bread, and they're ready for a major label deal. But as you kind of adequately and nicely laid out, there's steps as you go up as Distro Kid and TuneCore, CD Baby to the next layer before you even think about a major. So let's talk about the in-between layer, like the Orchard and In-Grooves and BMG Label Services and Empire Distribution. What do they really look at in terms of numbers, in terms of traction, in terms of fans, engagement, streams, or views on TikTok or Facebook or wherever it might be, before they will seriously consider signing you and then writing a check along with that signing? Because it's not just, hey, I got great music, and the next thing you know, your record's out on the Orchard. They've been distributing everybody, which they don't. Right. So what are they looking at?
They're definitely looking at numbers. And I will say, people, there are passive listeners and active listeners on the streaming services. So, I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but if, they can tell if people are actively searching for your artist or your song, that's active listening, that shows higher engagement. And that's where these fans will probably stick around and be higher quality fans than somebody who discovered you on just kind of a low level playlist or something like that. So there's a lot of nuances that go into that. And fan engagement is probably the biggest thing that they look at. But as your streams are coming up, then they will see maybe you're getting some press looks or press opportunities, or the sentiment online is generally positive. But at this point, artists, I don't want them to be so focused on the numbers and getting like, oh, I need to jack my streams up, or I need to do this, without there being an authentic story to tell. Because once this one single comes and goes, what's next? Like, what is the rest of the story for the artist? What are they trying to do? And that's where, companies like Empire, In-Grooves, they're looking at a little bit of a longer game than just a flash in the pan kind of single. So, and I'm not disregarding TikTok, of course, it's major right now, but you have to kind of ask yourself, where are these artists going to be in 3 to 5 years? What's their story? Or will they have longevity where there'll be something there that people care about? Or is it because the song is a great chorus or a great beat and it's just a kind of a hit or miss, once in a lifetime moment? Popularity, we've seen that time and time again, with artists who hit with a single and then there's really nothing to follow it up, and they kind of just disappear from public eye at that point and try to work their way back.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, Mike, as a successful working musician, what was your path to marketing yourself that ultimately took you from Mississippi to stages around the world, working with some of the most iconic music artists in the business today? So what did you do that got you to where you are right now?
Man, I was always trying to have my own sound and package my own stuff. Even when I was in undergrad, I mean, I was recording my own songs and buying the little package from Office Depot to package a CD yourself, and I was selling them at my gigs. And just when guys would come through the school, like some of the great touring musicians at the time, Greg Osby, I don't know, Christian McBride, whoever, I would talk to these artists, and just ask questions, like, who's your label? Who is this? Who is that? And I mean, I was probably 20 or 21 years old. I got the email of Juliett Wolf at Blue Note Records. And I just emailed him myself. I said, hey, man, I got some music I'd like to for you to check it out. And he said, well, cool, man. If you're ever in New York, stop by the office. I'm thinking, I'm going to take this guy on his word. So I called a friend in New York that I had up there. I was like, yo, can I come crash on your couch? And I reached out to Eli Wolf, and I took a meeting at Blue Note Records, like 20, 21 years old, by myself, no representation, no nothing, man. So, I mean, nothing came of it. I didn't get a deal, but I got to meet with this guy. He gave me some great nuggets of information, man. And just that ambition. Even when I started touring, I always wanted to also put out my own songs and records of that nature too, man. So I think that helped me even get some gigs. Like my first record I put out maybe like 04, 05, the guy that mixed the record with the drummer for New Edition. And they were looking for a saxophonist, but also somebody who played keys, you know, to go out on the road with them. Because, you know, there's the one song, Johnny Gill, My, they had to have a horn player play that. But outside of that, it was all like, you know, auxiliary keyboard stuff. And because this guy mixed my record and knew that I had self-produced it all myself and I played keys, he recommended me to go on the road with them. You know what I'm saying? So just like really just kind of just toot my own horn and not really just taking no for an answer. Even when, you know, with Facebook and Instagram came about, I'm always going to put my product out. It's going to be about my work. It's not going to be like a lot of foolishness or crazy stuff. Just going to be, you know, this is the music. This is proof of it's like my portfolio, you know. So even I would say 10 to 12 years ago, man, I was doing a tour with an artist. So I won't say his name, but they canceled the tour on us the day we were supposed to leave. And at that time, I was like, okay, I can't be sitting around just waiting for these gigs like this. I have to be very proactive, you know. So that's when I started section and the band Good Times Brass Band, Good Times Horns. And with that horn section, we just started to promote ourselves and post ourselves of the work that we do and our arrangements and whatnot. And I really think that that's what's gotten even me being in Vegas now here with Usher is that, you know, people seeing our work and seeing us do these things. So just trying to really just self-promote, you know, and use social media to my benefit, you know.
Wow. So you just said two very important words, social media. Okay. So Juliett, a lot of people throw that word around, and Mike just mentioned it as a key to his path towards marketing and promotion and building relationships, but also public and industry awareness. For an independent, a DIY artist, what should they really be focused on in that field of social media marketing that can help set them apart from the other 1,000 records that got dropped and uploaded that?
Right. That's a great question. I tell artists, you know, you want to have a presence everywhere. You're right. You want to have a Twitter profile set up. You want to have everything set up and up to date. So it's very important. And I will say this, even as a talent buyer, right? You never know who's scrolling your social media at 2 a.m. It's very important for your bio section, Instagram, Spotify, Twitter, to be up to date and current. You can change it anytime you want. So have current links, have current bio, have a great description. You know, every artist should kind of have, like Mike said, you should kind of have a tagline, you know, so people know what you are in one sentence, you know, Good Time Horns, great arrangements, you know, that kind of thing, or the Pinks, you know, rock and roll band from Atlanta. You know, you want to give people something. So aside from having a presence everywhere, I tell my artists to let's focus on 2 platforms, because it's really easy to get burnout, and artists are just as much content creators as they are musicians. So I just say, let's really focus on 2 platforms, and definitely Instagram would be one. Maybe it's Instagram and TikTok, maybe it's Instagram and YouTube, but really just focus and double down on 2 platforms and use every tool that they have. Do Instagram Reels, do stories, do IG Lives, do a YouTube short, do YouTube, you know, long form videos, do all these things, because the more that you help the algorithm on the platform, the more you bring people in, the more the platform helps you. You can repurpose a lot of content. And this is where it comes into, maybe you have a friend or someone who can help you kind of put all this stuff together, you know, but you can repurpose your content, you can plan it out, but double down on 1 or 2 platforms. And then again, go back to what I said, like, what's the story? What kind of artist are you? What's the story? It doesn't have to be anything huge budget, grand, but it just has to be authentic. And that's what people just want to see. They just want to see who the authentic artist is. And not everything on your social media has to be about your music. It can be about your favorite TV show. Maybe you can do a Sunday night discussion on Game of Thrones on IG Live, right? That could, you know, be something that is entertaining your crowd, but you're not bombarding them with, hey, listen to my new single, you know. So just think outside the box a little bit and just find your interests and just communicate with people. You know, that really is as simple as it is, but it's sometimes hard to execute.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
For members of our audience, I have, let's just say, a little bit of a modest budget for marketing and promotion.
mhm.
What are the recommendations and options and opportunities that are out there when you actually want to engage a social marketing company to do the kinds of things that you were just talking about doing independently and individually?
Yeah, and they'll ask you the same things. You know, the first part of that budget will probably be spent on finding where your audience is. You know, an easy way to do that is to target similar audiences. You know, so if, you know, I'm, you know, a rock band or whatever, or an R&B artist, you want to find higher level, mid-level artists that are really kind of similar. You think your audience is going to cross over. I think the first part of your budget is going to be trying to find fans who would, oh, this does sound interesting. I'm already listening to something similar. Let me see if I like this, or if I want to engage with this profile or something like that. So your first part of your budget is probably audience discovery. And then your second part of your budget is really just finding the kind of content that they want to consume. Maybe they are really into reels or 30-second videos, or maybe they're more into behind the scenes photos, you know, and that's where a lot of the budget, the first time you do something like that, gets spent. And it's good to have, it's good to have, because you need to know these things, so you're not putting your money somewhere where you're not really getting your return or seeing any action happening.
Yeah, well, I like that last point, which leads to my next question. For independent artists who do have a little bit of budget, how do they locate reputable social media marketing companies that don't just blah, 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 take not deliver because we know we're in the music?
Yeah, it takes a little work to go through some of those companies. And there are a lot of companies now, and a lot of them are great. Just look at where their presence are, these companies. Like, are they advertising in the trade magazines? You know, do you see other people talking about them? Are they doing content? Are they writing opinion articles on some of the well-known music websites and giving insight, you know, things like that? You know, you can see if they've been validated, so to speak, in the music industry world, or the other artists they're working with. You know, that's what I always look for. Who are they working with, and have I heard of these artists before? You know, that's always kind of my first question.
Great. A little bit of research and due diligence before you write that check.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Mike, you live a lot of your life on the road, which is good.
Yeah.
But
sometimes
most people, they're really doing what you're doing actively or themselves, they see the end result. They see the live show. They see, you know, the performer on the stage, but they don't see what goes below the iceberg and below the radar screen that leads up to that. So can you just take us through some of your experiences as a touring artist, and some of the highlights, some of the downsides, some of the major concerns about stepping out from the studio to the stage?
Well, I guess the main thing, first and foremost, is that if you want to break into this scene, you have to meet the people, right? You have to, you know, network. I know tons of really, really great musicians who can play all the scales, they can solo like whoever, you know, but they don't have the people skills. They can't, you know, carry on a conversation. They can't be funny. They can't be likable, you know. And I'm not trying to hate on people, but I'm just saying, but that's a lot of it. Like when you're on the road with folks for 3 months in the summer, the show is 75 minutes. You know, you got another, you know, whole day left, you know, to be with these people on the bus or at the hotel or at the restaurant. And you have to, you know, you got to carry on the conversation. Folks got to want to be around you, you know, because I've seen a lot of cats get sent home just because, personalities didn't mesh, you know. So that's been great for me, just meeting folks from all walks of life, man. I mean, like the majority of my work in the past 10 years has probably come from a handful of people, you know, 3 or 4 music directors who called us for everything, you know. So it's really that small, and it's kind of like once you're in, but you got to get in some kind of way. But what I think people are more prone to call you when they see you actively doing something already, you know, like I said, with the Good Times Horns, or me doing my own projects, or, you know, not sitting around just waiting for the phone to ring, but trying to be active on my own And then people will say, well, these guys are over here, these guys are doing this and doing that. And they want to see, you know, what it's all about as well. And you kind of get in the room, you know. But also a closed mouth don't get fed, man. Like you gotta put yourself out there, man. You know, ask the questions, you know. That's a huge part of it. But the behind the scenes, you know, once you've gotten to the gig, I mean, the work that goes into it. I've been on some tours when I was with Jill Scott. We rehearsed for a month before we had our first show. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of work. I'm talking about 10-hour days rehearsing, you know, a lot of stuff. But once you see that finished product, it's like, man, this band is so tight. They're so awesome. But we've really put the work in, you know. Even out here with Usher, I mean, we've had some 12-hour day rehearsals. I mean, till 2 a.m. and he's in there with us, just tweaking things and trying to get it straight, you know. And we're still changing stuff, but yeah. So, but it's fun, but it's definitely a labor of love, you know.
Wow. Yeah. Two major takeaways that I heard from that are the value of relationships, of establishing them and nurturing them, and also building up a list of credits. Because always people want to know, well, what did you do lately? What did you do recently? Right. But now It's not your first rodeo. So those two things I think are kind of primary to propelling success and sustenance to a career for a touring musician. Switching gears just a little bit, another one of your, let's just call it labors of love, is serving as a vice president on the Grammy Board of Governors for the Atlanta recording chapter of the Academy. Yes. Talk to us about the significance of what the Academy is and why the creative community that's listening to this, as well as the professionals, should consider, if they're not already members of the Recording Academy, why should they join?
Well, for me, I mean, you know, I've been on the board, I guess now maybe the past 4 or 5 years. This is my second year as vice president. And I've just learned a lot. I've learned that it's more than just an award show. You know, when the pandemic happened, I mean, they have this branch called Music Cares, and they were one of the first ones to cut checks to help cats out who, you know, tours got cut short or, you know, just for anything. I mean, they offer, you know, dental checkups and health screenings, and for guys or ladies out there who have issues with drug abuse, they also, you know, offer things to help with that. And to me, that's just one of the most important arms of the Recording Academy is Music Cares. I mean, but they do so much. I'm also the chair of the education committee, and they do so much as well. Grammys in the schools and just trying to train up the next generation, teach them, you know, Grammy U is something they have at the colleges, you know, to just, you know, have that next crop of industry professionals coming up and just showing them the reins and how things go. So it's just so much more than just, you know, that 2-3 hour show that we see, you know, it's just great.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's something that everybody who's serious about pursuing a profession in this business, as opposed to making it a hobby, you should really join the Recording Academy and be a contributor as opposed to a sideliner that just kind of looks at the bus going by. So I highly recommend that. And thank you for your service, Mike.
Oh, thank you.
I don't want to bore people, but let's just talk about what I call really essential legal foundations to maintaining not a successful career, but realizing that we're talking about the music business. And what I always tell folks, clients, and students is there are 2 words to that phrase. Music obviously is the creativity which starts it off, but the second word is business. And if you don't take care of your business, ultimately it may be a hobby as opposed to a business for you. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give you all just a short legal checklist and encourage you really just to delve more deeply into it if there are areas of it that you are not familiar with and haven't put into your weekly, daily, monthly mantra of taking care of my business. First, the copyrights. For anybody who is creating a song, whether it's the music track, whether it's the lyrics, you need to make sure that you have filed copyrights. Not the poor man's copyright where you put something in an envelope and mail it to yourself, because that's why they call it poor man, because you wind up and you stay poor. But the U.S. government, the Library of Congress, has an office called the Copyright Office. Make copyright.gov one of your easily accessible friends where you can register your copyrights online, or you can do the old-fashioned paper. There are instructions there, but most importantly, as independent artist, you probably are also at the beginning and early stages your own record company as well.
Mhm.
So you're wearing two hats: record company hat, artist hat. There are two separate copyrights, which most people really don't focus in on. There's a copyright in the underlying song, which is a PA form for performing arts. There's a completely separate copyright in the actual sound recording, the SR form, which is some people call the master. It's the song file, the wave, whatever configuration you have it. They are two distinct copyrights. Whereas with your song, you're going to list as author as everybody who made a original contribution to that song, producer who did the tracks, yourself and others who might have did the lyrics, the hook, the bridge, the verse, whatever. Make sure you have split sheets. Song split sheets eliminate potentials for disputes and arguments and not getting paid down the road. Split sheets are real simple. You can do them online now at a lot of different portals, or you can do it in the old-fashioned way. Take a piece of paper, and when you're in the studio, make sure before everybody leaves, everybody signs their name, their publishing company, and what their percentage of that song is, and make sure it doesn't exceed 100%. Mm-hmm. That will then, it doesn't get filed anywhere, but that will then evidence for later filings and recordings and registrations what everybody's percentage is, because you need to know who's claiming what percentage on a song when you do your registrations. As a songwriter, for those that are composing their own lyrics or doing their own music, you need to make sure you've joined one of the performing rights organizations. Here, that's basically ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and by special invitation, Global Music Rights, GMR. You need to make sure that you are a member, both as a writer and as a publisher, your own publishing company, with one of those three. You can't join more than one, but one of those three. If not, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, because when your song is streamed and performed, and when it's on television, and when it's played literally on terrestrial radio, there are royalties that flow with that. And if you haven't registered it, you're missing out on a nice piece of the pie. Same thing with Sound Exchange. Keep in mind that Sound Exchange has nothing to do with publishing. So Sound Exchange has been around for a little over 12 years now. It came into existence through the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Sound Exchange, basically, its membership is composed of artists and record companies or those entities, production companies, labels that own the sound recording copyright. And like ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, there's two separate memberships: the artist, the copyright owner, and the master. And if you're an independent artist, again, you need to have two memberships so that you don't get half paid, you get 100% paid. And what Sound Exchange does, it pays on what they call non-interactive digital streams. In English, that means Pandora. It means XM Sirius satellite. It means your favorite radio stations.com. It is not Spotify and Diesel and Apple Music, because those are interactive streams. But given the fact that Sound Exchange collects and distributes over $1 billion a year in royalties, if you're not a member, you're leaving money on the table. And if you leave that money on the table for too long, those that have done the due diligence of joining will share in your royalties that will be distributed in the pool release. So you want to make sure you're getting paid. If you're not the producer and you're really the artist, singer, performer, and you have a producer who did the tracks, you should have a producer agreement, at a minimum a deal memo with that individual saying you have the rights to exploit the song. In exchange, this is how they get compensated. If you have, and I don't recommend, but if you have sampled music that belongs to somebody else, either digitally or by a replay, you need agreements, either from the licensor, the owners of that original sound recording, and the publisher, or if it's just an interpolation, which we call a replay, you just need it from the publisher. But the problem is, if you don't get it, and the record is really, and the music is up and beginning to garner some success and notoriety, inevitably it's going to be taken down. And you may also face a potential claim beyond the cease and desist letter that you'll get for copyright infringement. And you don't want to see your name on a defendant's document if you are claiming or being claimed to have infringed on someone else's copyright. If in fact you're going to be operating as an independent artist, independent label, independent production company, you should set up a corporate entity through which you will operate. We call it your loan out company. And it could be an LLC or an old-fashioned corporation, but make sure you get it done. The doing business as, your sole proprietor, that's okay in stage 1, stage 2, but as you begin to expand, you need to incorporate. So you insulate yourself from personal liability, as well as building an entity that then will act as your organization, your operation, your business arm for doing all of these kinds of things inside the business. If you have someone who's taking videos for you, and it's not your homeboy or your friend or your family member, but you're actually paying and hiring somebody, I don't care whether it's $100 or $5,000 that you're paying them to do a video, make sure there is an agreement, a videographer agreement, stating that you're giving them X number of dollars. In exchange, you're owning and controlling the rights, the copyright, and the other rights to that video, so that it doesn't blow up, wind up on the internet, on a social media platform, beginning to make ad revenue, and somebody's knocking on your door saying, hey, I really own that video. I want all of the money, or I want to share in it. And it does happen. So it's just an abbreviated list of the things that you really need to do, should do, in order to protect what I call your assets. So just make sure you're doing them, and that way you'll be able to enjoy the business side of the music business, and not only enjoy it, but be rightfully compensated and build the assets that you have worked hard to create, because copyrights are intellectual property. They are an asset. And as many people read the headlines these days, a lot of catalogs are being bought and sold in the marketplace for literally millions, tens of millions, and hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's a viable asset that Wall Street, the hedge funds, and the venture capital funds have their eye on, and they're spending literally billions of dollars every year to acquire those copyrights. So get in the game, build your foundation. On the wind down, I would just like to ask Juliett and Mike just to share a takeaway for the audience in terms of something that you would recommend as, let's call it, the mantra that they should keep in their heads from today's session that you would recommend that they focus in on to be successful in this business. Juliett?
That's a great question. I think something I said earlier was just being authentic. And then the other thing is just get some help. If you're a young artist or even a young manager, or a new artist, new manager, if you're an artist, you probably have one of your good friends who can help you stay on track and help you do some things online so you don't overwhelm yourself with that. And then the other thing is just really, what's your story? What are you talking about? What's your artist are you focused on? It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It does, just be real. And that's just the main thing. Just be real, just be authentic, and just be consistent. And just make sure that all your online profiles are up to date and freshened up periodically, because you never know, like I said, who's looking at your website or Instagram bio at 2:00 in the morning. I promise you, people are looking, people are checking you out. So you just want to stay up to date.
So. Great. Hey, Mike, you got the mic.
Yeah, man, I would just say, don't give up. Really, the only thing, the difference between people who you see are successful and people who are not, they just kept going. I think, and I would say, because they're just people, they're not superheroes or whatever. They're just people that had dreams and ambitions, and they just kept going. So just don't give up, and surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do, people who are better than you. If you are the smartest person in your group of friends, or the most ambitious, or the most talented, you need some more friends. You need some people that are going to push you. So go where those places are. If you, that's it. Just keep going. That's all I got.
Definitely. And I would add to that something that Mike talked about earlier, which is the importance and the value of relationships. The universe functions on relationships, whether it's the relationship between you and your maker, whether it's a relationship between the organs in your body that starts with the heart, it pumps everything through, family relationships with friends. Our world functions on relationships. The relationship the sun and the moon to the earth so we don't get burned up. But in the context of the music industry, the relationships are critical. I can say when I look at my career as an entertainment lawyer, one move to another move to another move have all been the subject of relationships and the result of nurturing those relationships. So you need to network, build those relationships, and then leverage those relationships to career trajectories to success. Also is educate. It doesn't cost thousands of dollars now the way it used to educate yourself, to go to workshops and seminars, to attend South by Southwest, to do webinars and the DeKalb Entertainment Expo like we're doing today, to go to conferences. There are a lot that are in Atlanta that are either just straight conferences or conferences tagged up with live shows. They're here. You need to be in those audiences. You also need to access yourself to the online publications, whether it's billboard.com or a host of others that have tons of information. It used to be very difficult, but now it's just a Google search. You can go right on and then you just do your homework. So in the evening when things are quiet and downshifting, you can really focus in on it. Just do some research online to build up that skill set, to build up that knowledge base. Who's making what kind of move in the music industry that might be something that you could also use as a mirror for yourself and to propel your own career. All that information now is accessible with a mouse click. So you need to take advantage of it if, in fact, this is a career and an industry that you really want to pursue as a business as opposed to just a hobby. So with that, I will drop the mic and I'm going to ask Shelbia, my dear Miss Jackson, if you would come on back in and bring us home.
All right. All right. Thank you guys so much for this wonderful panel. I think you all have dropped the mic for this one. Great tips, great information, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have not taken advantage of looking at our website at DeKalbEntertainment.com, panels like these are just for you guys so that you can grow your skills, you can learn what it takes to be successful in this industry. All of these industry professionals are successful in their own right, and they have graciously volunteered their time and talent to share their experiences with you. You need to take advantage of these. You will not get this you haven't seen this before in the metro area. We want you to be successful, and we're coming together, bringing all these professionals together just for you. Lastly, to our GMP panelists, Mala Sharma is on here with us from Georgia Music Partners, and then we have Mike Burton and Juliett Rowe and Kendall Mentor. We appreciate you guys for being here, and thank you all for all of your tips. I took note of some very good tips. Get some help, tell your story, be real, be authentic, Miss Juliett. Mike with don't give up, keep going. Surround yourself with people who will push you to be better. And Kendall, the value of relationships, networking, that is the main thing we push out there on every single panel. You have to get out and network with people, ask questions, be persistent, and nurture those relationships and educate yourself, and which is this is one of the ways that we're trying to make sure you guys get that information. Everyone, please stay connected by visiting the Georgia Music Partners website at georgiamusicpartners.org. Also, lastly, to our audience, advocates, and partners, we thank you all so much for your support, all of our Entertainment Commission organizations as well. You can check out all these panels on our Instagram at DeKalb Entertain. And with that, I think we will close it out or share any takeaways or any other information you guys might like to share. Our next panel is with the Women in Film and TV Atlanta chapter, which is called WIFTA, on October 19th. That is a Wednesday at 12 p.m. We're excited about them. They have a bunch of different events as well coming up this year. So we just wanted to highlight them and their activities, and of course their annual gala in November. So with that, we will close it out and thank everybody for joining us.
Thank you.